I never understood what a ghost was until I became one in my own home. It started the day I found her old college sweatshirt, the one with Northwestern printed in faded purple, shoved in the back of her car. It wasn't the sweatshirt that made my heart stop. It was a smell. It smelled like him, like the cologne I'd only smelled once before. A sharp, woody scent that had no business being in my life, in our life. That was the moment I knew my marriage was a memory. I just hadn't caught up to it yet. We were the perfect couple, or so I thought. I'm Ethan, by the way. My wife Sarah and I had this life we'd built from scratch in our small 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet corner of Chicago. The one with the leaky faucet I always promised to fix, and the balcony where we drink cheap wine and watch the city lights flicker to life. I remember those nights so clearly. We'd wrap ourselves in a single blanket, the cool Chicago wind biting at our faces, and talk about the someday. Someday, she'd whisper, we'll have a yard big enough for a garden. You'll have a studio with floor-to-ceiling windows. I believed her, every word. I was a graphic designer, she was a second-grade teacher, and our world was a comfortable orbit of inside jokes, shared takeout menus, and plans for a future that felt as solid as the ground beneath our feet. We talked about everything: buying a house in the suburbs, getting a golden retriever we'd name Gus, having kids who would have her eyes and my stubbornness. Our love was the easy kind, the kind that felt like coming home after a long day. Or maybe it was just safe. The first tremor was so small, I almost missed it. It was a Tuesday, I remember, because it was taco night, our sacred weekly ritual. Sarah was on her phone, smiling at the screen with an intensity I hadn't seen directed at me in a while. Just an old friend from college, she'd said, waving it off when I asked, Mark, you wouldn't know him. The name hung in the air for a second, a foreign object in our familiar space, before dissipating into the sizzle of ground beef. Mark. I'd heard the name once, years ago, in a story about a messy college breakup. A guy who had apparently shattered her heart before I came along to piece it back together. I told myself I was being paranoid, a jealous husband cliché. But then, the old friend started appearing more often. Not in person, but in the digital ether of our lives. The weeks that followed were like watching a photograph fade in the sun. Her phone, which used to be communal property, was suddenly always face down. She'd take calls in the bathroom with the shower running. When I'd walk into a room, she'd snap the laptop shut, her face flushing a guilty pink. She started having girls' nights that ended with her coming home at 2 a.m., smelling faintly of that same sharp, woody cologne. I'd lie awake in the dark, listening to her creep across the hardwood floors, pretending to be asleep because I was too terrified to ask the question that was burning a hole in my throat. The easy rhythm of our life was disrupted. Our late-night talks were replaced by the soft glow of her phone screen. She started dressing up more, not for our date nights, which were becoming increasingly rare, but for errands or lunches with friends. The clues were there, scattered like breadcrumbs, leading to a truth I wasn't ready to face. I was living in a house of cards, admiring the architecture while a storm was gathering just outside the window. The turning point wasn't a dramatic movie-style confrontation. It was quiet, sterile, and all the more devastating for it. I had planned a surprise for our 5th anniversary. I came home early from work. a bouquet of her favorite peonies in one hand, and reservations to the fancy Italian place we always talked about in the other. I even bought that expensive vintage wine she liked. The apartment was silent. Too silent. A suitcase, our big one, was open on the bed. My mind refused to process it. Maybe she was planning a surprise trip for us? But her side of the closet was half empty. The space where her floral dresses usually hung looked like a missing tooth. Her favorite books were gone from the nightstand. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. Then I saw it. A single plane ticket on the dresser, tucked under her favorite bottle of perfume. A one-way flight to San Diego, leaving that evening. His city, Mark's city. When she walked in, her keys jingling the same way they always did, the sound was like a gunshot in the silence. She saw me. She saw the ticket in my hand, and the mask of normalcy she'd been wearing for months finally crumbled. There were no tears, not from her, just a calm, chilling resolve. "I'm sorry, Ethan," she said, her voice even. "I have to do this. I never really got over him." The words were so simple, yet they ripped through me with the force of a hurricane. "5 years, Sarah," I whispered. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. We built a life. We were going to get Gus. We were going to buy the house. Was any of it real? She didn't look away. "It was real to you," she said. "And for a while, I tried to make it real for me too. But he called, and I realized I've just been waiting for him this whole time." I was a supporting character in my own love story. The whole time I thought I was building a life with her, I was just a placeholder, a comfortable stopover on her journey back to him. The days that followed were a blur of hollow spaces and deafening silence. Every corner of the apartment screamed her name. Her toothbrush still in the holder, a strand of her long brown hair on my pillow, the lingering scent of her shampoo in the shower. I stopped going to work. I'd sit on the balcony until the sun came up, watching the Chicago skyline and wondering how many other people in those lit-up windows were sleeping next to strangers. I became an archaeologist of our dead relationship, digging through old photos, rereading old texts, trying to pinpoint the exact moment the rot set in. Was it that weekend in Michigan 3 years ago? Was she thinking of him when we toasted to our future? Was our laughter fake? Were those nights on the balcony just a performance? The pain was a physical thing, a constant weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I'd see couples holding hands on the street, simple, mundane gestures, and feel a fresh wave of nausea. I was drowning in the what-ifs and the whys. My mind a relentless loop of her final words. I never really got over him. It was the ultimate betrayal. The idea that the foundation of our entire life together was built on a lie, on the ghost of another man. The ending, our ending, came in the form of a small padded envelope a few months later. No return address, but I knew. Inside were the divorce papers and a small silver key, the one to our apartment. Tucked into the legal documents was a sticky note. 4 words. "I hope you understand." Understand? How could I ever understand? You don't just erase 5 years of a person's life with a plane ticket and a 4-word apology. You don't hand back a key and expect the doors to stay closed. But as I sat there, in the crushing silence of the life we were supposed to have, a strange clarity washed over me. Her leaving wasn't just about him. It was about her not being strong enough to let go of a fantasy. And me not being brave enough to see the truth. I had ignored every red flag because I was addicted to the idea of us. I stood up, walked over to the kitchen, and grabbed my toolbox. I spent the next hour fixing that leaky faucet, the one I'd promised to fix for 3 years. Every turn of the wrench felt like a step away from her. The drip stopped. The silence was finally peaceful. I was in love with a woman who was in love with a memory. Now, all I have are memories of my own, and I'm left here in this quiet apartment, wondering if you ever truly know the person sleeping next to you, or if we're all just loving the stories we tell ourselves. The ghost is gone now, and finally, so am I.